For years, China's restaurant industry has been a shining star in the global food scene. With more than 1.4 billion people and an urban population that loves to eat out, the F&B sector was booming. International investors poured in, homegrown chains expanded aggressively, and small family-owned restaurants thrived on the promise of endless demand. Dining out wasn't just about food, it was about community, status, and lifestyle. But today, that dream is collapsing. According to data cited by Reuters and drawn from China's business registration database Cachacha, an astonishing 3 million restaurants shut their doors between March 2024 and March 2025. To put that into perspective, that's more than the entire number of restaurants in the United States. Behind the statistics lies a story of broken dreams, shattered investments, and millions of workers suddenly unemployed. The collapse has triggered what many are calling a great cleansing of the Chinese F&B industry. The shock numbers in major cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, monthly closure rates soared to 10 to 15%. A newly opened restaurant today has an average lifespan of less than 1 year. Net profits across the industry have plunged 88% in the first half of 2025 alone. Think about that. An industry that once contributed significantly to China's consumer spending and job creation is now hemorrhaging money at a historic pace. So what went wrong? Why is one of the world's largest dining markets collapsing so suddenly? The roots of this meltdown go back to the COVID-19 pandemic. Lockdowns devastated restaurants, but the sector never fully recovered even after restrictions were lifted. Consumer demand remained weak, while millions of newly unemployed workers from sectors like real estate, tech, and education jumped into the food business as a desperate survival strategy. The result? Oversaturation. New restaurants mushroomed across cities, creating a market flooded with too many players and not enough demand. But oversupply wasn't the only problem. Competition in China's F&B sector turned into a brutal price war. Chains like Luckin Coffee, Starbucks, and Meishu slashed prices to attract customers, offering 9 renminbi and 90 cents coffee, $1.40, and family meals for just 99 renminbi, $14. To survive, smaller restaurants had no choice but to join the race to the bottom. As one restaurant owner in Shanghai told Dragon Plus Insight, "The more we cut prices, the more we lose. But if we don't cut prices, we won't have any customers." It's a vicious cycle with no way out. Consumer shifts adding to the chaos is a major shift in consumer behavior. With rising unemployment and slowing economic growth, Chinese families are cutting back on non-essential spending. Eating out, once a flexible and frequent expense, has been replaced by home cooking, meal prep services, or cheap takeout. Even the wealthy are pulling back. High-end restaurants that once thrived on luxury dining have seen sharp declines, while budget eateries struggle with shrinking margins. This isn't just a short-term trend. It signals a deeper shift in Chinese consumer psychology, from indulgence to frugality. Rising costs, shrinking margins. Meanwhile, operating costs remain stubbornly high. Rent in prime urban locations like Beijing's Chaoyang district or Shanghai's Pudong remains astronomical. Labor costs and food prices add further strain. For small and mid-sized operators, just a few months of declining revenue is enough to trigger bankruptcy. The result is a wave of closures so massive that used kitchen equipment dealers report a 270% increase in restaurant liquidations compared to 2024. In Beijing alone, some prime location bakeries with rents of 50,000 renminbi per month, $7,000, were forced to close after barely a year in business. The big picture, the collapse of 3 million restaurants, isn't just an F&B story. It's a consumer confidence crisis. If China's citizens can't or won't spend money on dining out, one of the most basic forms of consumption, what does that say about the broader economy? As China struggles with a slowing economy, a youth unemployment crisis, and a weakening real estate market, the implosion of the restaurant industry is yet another sign that the country's growth model is under severe stress. And this is just the beginning. The price war that killed profits. When you think of the restaurant business, the basic equation seems simple. Cook food, sell it at a margin, and make a living. But in China's hyper-competitive food and beverage sector, that logic has broken down completely. The rise of powerful food delivery platforms like Meltdown and ele.me has turned the industry into a digital battleground. Instead of attracting customers through taste, service, or atmosphere, many restaurants now fight for survival with relentless discounts. Delivery apps bombard users with coupons, vouchers, and time-limited deals, forcing restaurants to sell at razor-thin or even negative margins. A cup of coffee for 9 renminbi and 90 cents, $1.40. A 4-person dinner set for 99 renminbi, $14. These ultra-low prices are designed to attract traffic, but they devastate profitability. Restaurants trapped in this cycle end up chasing volume at the expense of survival. One Beijing franchise manager told Reuters,
"The shop next door sells the same product, maybe even worse quality, but 10 renminbi cheaper. Ordinary people will just choose the cheaper one. Everyone is broke, and even if they have money, they don't want to spend like before."
It's a vicious race to the bottom, and small businesses are the biggest losers. Winners and losers. Big players like Luckin Coffee, Starbucks, and Mishua Ice Cream and Tea are still expanding. With deep pockets and economies of scale, they can afford to slash prices and absorb temporary losses. Their brand recognition and digital integration give them a competitive edge. But mom-and-pop shops, street stalls, and family-run restaurants cannot compete. They don't have the capital to survive long price wars, nor the technology to integrate seamlessly with delivery platforms. As a result, millions of small operators have been pushed out of the market. This explains why the closures are not random. They overwhelmingly affect small-scale, independent businesses, while larger chains consolidate power. What looks like a market collapse is, in reality, a brutal reshaping of the industry, a survival of the biggest. Consumer behavior. From indulgence to frugality. To understand why this collapse is so severe, we have to look at the consumer side. For decades, China's rising middle class drove a culture of eating out. From hot pot feasts at Haidaleo to bubble tea splurges after school, dining out was as much about socializing as it was about food. But times have changed. Economic slowdown, youth unemployment, and declining confidence in the future have triggered a shift in behavior. Families now cook more at home. Young people turn to instant noodles or simple takeout. Even the aspirational culture of luxury dining is fading. One 26-year-old in Shanghai told Dragon Plus Insight,
"I used to go out with friends 3 or 4 times a week. Now, maybe once or twice a month. We'd rather cook at home and save the money."
This frugality is reflected in the numbers. China's restaurant profit margins have shrunk dramatically, and the industry's growth rate fell from 20.4% in 2023 to just 5.3% in 2024. The burden of rent and overheads. Even as revenue collapses, costs remain high. Rent in central Shanghai can reach 50,000 renminbi, $7,000, per month. Labor wages are rising, while food costs are unpredictable due to supply chain disruptions. For many businesses, survival isn't about attracting more customers, but simply outlasting the monthly rent bill. And as sales decline, that math becomes impossible. The story of Mr. N, the kitchen equipment dealer, perhaps the most telling indicator of the crisis, comes not from the restaurants themselves, but from those who clean up after them. Mr. Ndawe, a second-hand kitchen equipment dealer, told Reuters that he now dismantles 200 restaurants per month, a 270% increase compared to 2024. Stainless steel ovens, deep fryers, refrigerators, and even dining tables flood the resale market. In other words, the death of one restaurant is feeding the scavenger economy of liquidation sales. He recalls dismantling a bakery near Beijing's Olympic Park. Despite its prime location, high rent of 50,000 renminbi per month, $7,000, and stylish interior design, it lasted only 14 months before shutting down.
For ordinary people, opening a restaurant in China today is almost guaranteed failure,
Mr. N says. Case study. The fall of Opera Bombana and other icons. The collapse isn't limited to small businesses. Even prestigious establishments are struggling. Opera Bombana, a fine dining restaurant in Beijing, closed its doors despite its global reputation. Similarly, chains like QONEI Village, Gulaoguan, and MOS Burger have either shut down outlets or scaled back operations, citing unbearable rent and shrinking customer bases. The message is clear. This isn't just about weak players being eliminated. Even established brands with strong reputations cannot escape the structural challenges of China's F&B market. Declining quality and consumer backlash. There's another side effect of the price war: quality erosion. To survive, many restaurants cut costs by using cheaper ingredients or reducing portion sizes. Mr. N explains.
When restaurants can't afford to lose money anymore, they try to turn a profit by lowering the quality of their food. That's the only way.
This, in turn, alienates consumers who feel they are paying the same but getting less. The cycle of distrust further reduces dining out frequency, accelerating closures. Beyond restaurants, a broader economic warning. Ultimately, the collapse of 3 million restaurants isn't just an industry issue. It's a warning signal for the entire Chinese economy. Restaurants are a bellwether for consumer spending. If people aren't willing to spend on food, one of life's most basic pleasures, it suggests deep anxiety about jobs, wages, and the future. And for a government desperately trying to pivot China's economy from exports and real estate toward domestic consumption, the F&B meltdown is nothing short of a nightmare. When 3 million restaurants vanish from the economy in just 12 months, the impact doesn't stop at the storefront. Behind every shuttered restaurant is a network of workers, suppliers, delivery drivers, farmers, and small businesses who depended on that income. According to labor analysts, each restaurant in China employs, on average, between 5 to 15 workers. That means the closure of 3 million restaurants may have directly erased between 15 million and 45 million jobs. And if we include the indirect effects, suppliers, food distributors, and logistics, the number climbs even higher. Many of these workers were young people in their 20s and 30s, already struggling to find stable jobs in China's slowing economy. For them, restaurant work provided not only an income but also a pathway into the urban middle class. Now, that pathway has been cut off. The result? A surge in unemployment in urban centers, where young workers are lining up for hours outside job fairs, often competing for low-wage positions that don't even cover the cost of living. In cities like Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Beijing, social media is filled with desperate posts from people begging for leads on even the smallest jobs: waiting tables, washing dishes, or delivering food. But here's the tragic twist. Even food delivery, once a booming industry, is collapsing too. With fewer restaurants open, delivery platforms like Meituan and ele.me are seeing less demand. Drivers who used to earn a modest living now wait hours for a single order, while the platforms continue to take a huge cut of their already shrinking pay. This isn't just about restaurants. It's about a generation of workers who feel abandoned, a ticking time bomb of social frustration.